Hello, everyone. Welcome to TEDxBangalore Conversations, our digital efforts to make the world's smartest ideas accessible to our community. I am Sartaj Anand, the Curator of TEDxBangalore, and in this episode, we're joined by Dr. Pramod Varma, the Chief Architect of the Unique Identification Authority of India, commonly known as Aadhaar. Thank you for joining us, Pramod. I have a big sort of deep question for you, Pramod, to kick it off. We as normal citizens don't know how complex India's digital infrastructure is. It must be immense, it must be crazy. So could you just shine a light on it? Like what when we say digital infrastructure, digital Bharat, what is powering this? How big is this physical, virtual stack of technologies?
In one sense, not knowing the complexity is also important. A lot of us don't understand what it means to run shipyards or large highway system or rail network. We don't understand the complexity. It's also a good thing that for most people, it is the value that they care about and less about the size and the complexity of it. But for the builders, it is important that you understand the complexity, build for it, and mitigate the risks associated with it, and so on. So to give you a size, look at our identity. We can start with identity. Identity as an infrastructure. Telecom infrastructure is, of course, the underlying infrastructure that we have. We have 1 billion plus phones, 500 million smartphone users, the largest internet, bandwidth users, mobile internet bandwidth users for some reason, hopefully good reasons. Then we also have quite a fast, rapid penetration of internet itself. So we are the second largest internet penetrating country in terms of population after China. So the infrastructure that started there. Then, of course, the TV, on the other hand, always existed. Large-scale TV, digital TV, and access penetration. And with Dish TV and so on, we have enhanced it, and we continue to enhance that. That is another digital medium that we reach people by, right? DTH and so on. But when these are very low-level infrastructure, but with Aadhaar, we elevated that to the next set of infrastructures built on top of that and started with identity infrastructure. And Aadhaar today covers 1.25 billion people. 1.25 billion is 125 crore people have Aadhaar numbers. Aadhaar system today does about 1 billion, that's 100 crore authentications every month. Every month. And system, now if one person, the new person today enrolls into Aadhaar, to deduplicate that person, to ensure that that person doesn't have another Aadhaar ID. Today they have to do multiple billions or trillion matching. So it's sort of the complexity of matching, because you're matching this new person with everybody in the database, which is 1.25 billion people in the database, their photograph, fingerprint, and iris. To match that, you're unique. So from a computer system standpoint of view, it does trillions and trillions of biometric matches every day. And we have about 500 million and 500,000 roughly every day, enrollment plus update. And what's happening is that with 1.25 billion people who already have Aadhaar, update cycles have kicked in. So more than new enrollment, lots of updates are also going on, address changes and any other, mostly address changes and phone number changes. But
that was always the long tail of it,
yeah. Long tail, right?
Yeah, and you've developed there are other, I think, parallel ecosystems that have emerged on the back of Aadhaar, right? For example, there's the payment infrastructure that's come up.
Yeah. So the next layer, what we did is, while Aadhaar was the identity, and Aadhaar enabled dramatic speed in terms of we could do Jan Dhan rollout. For example, the rollout of banking access. From a recent study shows that 2008, we had about 17% of bank account access, by the way. Very low.
Yeah.
And within 2018, within a decade, we were 85%. So the country went through a dramatic improvement in access to banking. It's not solving everything yet, but it definitely access to banking systems. It's quite like the way you and I have. AEPS, which is the Aadhaar enabled payment system, which is the other side of the banking, where money comes from government to me as a pension or a program to my bank account. How do I take it out? If bank branches are not available anywhere near villages, how do an individual take out money and transact money and send money, especially with so much immigrants? How do they send money to their family and so on? So AEPS was set up in 2012, was under the RBI directive, including a micro ATM architecture, where the ATM is no more automated telemachine, it's actually assisted telemachine. This is a human being sitting there, but with a fingerprint device, so you authenticate and access banking, the 4 transactions, which is balance inquiry, deposit, transfer, and withdrawal. So the 4 core transactions were enabled, and that's what now used by India Post. When India Post got banking license, they pretty much used this to give banking at the doorstep. That's what's really happening. And the best part of this is that the untold story of this is that when COVID hit us in March and lockdown started, jobs and salaries were all like frozen. Very few people really got money. So government, APB, money transfer started, direct benefits transfer started through Aadhaar linked account. So the money was coming in. And the beauty of that system was in April and May, AEPS, the micro ATM transaction, doubled to 400 million transactions.
So the part that I wanted to just touch on briefly is the JAM stack, right? Jan Dhan, Aadhaar, mobile. We reached approximately, the media says 320 million odd people got some benefit in some way or form. You mentioned a bit about what went into making this technologically possible, but as one of the creators, right, for this, how does it make you feel? Because it must make you feel proud of
proud. Well, no question. I think more than making making me feeling proud about it, I think it was always been a privilege to be part of it, because such a large team effort. It's never an individual playing the game.
Yeah.
But what country as a whole India has pulled off, and in a 10-year time, dramatic increase in access to banking, direct benefits transfer getting cleaned up through direct benefit transfer. These are all what we call necessary step. As a jam stack is a necessary step, never sufficient, by the way. After all that thing, there will be humans who are harassing humans who are refusing to give food to immigrants, asking them to walk, actually, troubling them. Now, that part is where our democratic setup and civil society and all have to continue.
Yeah, it becomes a protective net.
Watch out to make sure we are okay, doing the right thing. But it's a necessary, not sufficient. So infrastructure investment is a necessary step the country has done. And we are reaping the benefit in terms of resilience to things like COVID, right? Resilience to a country's lockdown came directly because people can actually have banking at their doorstep. Imagine banking was restricted to banks physically, or schooling was restricted to schools. Learning was restricted to schools, and the working was restricted to workplace. If these restrictions, we would never be resilient. That's an issue that we'll have to face. Now that's a reality. It's hit us.
How are you thinking, and this connects to probably UPI as well, with growing tech complexity, say with 5G coming in or IoT coming in, we're expecting this billions of devices to become trillions of devices, right? What happens then for the technologies that you're building and also the technologies you're probably imagining?
So a lot of things we are doing, and it's very subtle, but definitely as an architect, I tend to think about these protocols like UPI. Let's take UPI as a protocol, or e-sign as a protocol, signature protocol. It has no form factor affinity. It has no specific smartphone or a device affinity. It has no specific hard coding of any particular type of bank account or account affinity in the case of UPI. Frankly, UPI can be used to move any monetizable information across two stored value. You can move loyalty points to buy something, or you can have a food coupon used to buy food on
any
UPI.
Store of value.
Any store of value, any form factor, any device on any network, by the way. You can even do that. So the underlying protocol is being unbundled from specificity of whether, in the case of smartphone, how will it work? It's a very specific thing. But I can do an IVR, call into an IVR 1-800 number and do authentication and transfer money on UPI. We have not yet enabled, but it's quite easy for somebody to imagine and enable. But beyond that, I would imagine, that's my imagination, would be that digital signature, identity verification, payment will be ubiquitously available on a set-top box or in a car. When I walk in the car, can I speak to the car and say order something and I use UPI to actually authorize?
Yeah, sure.
Right? Nothing stopping from imagining that and making that happen. So I'm very excited about that possibility.
There is this trend of being self-sufficient, localizing everything we are doing. I think what you've built is from the ground up localized, and it comes from that spirit. So you were Atmanirbhar, to put it, before it became a term. Yeah. So we just wanted to understand, we have the talent, we have the ability. What is next, right, to build our own solutions at scale? What do you think is our ability to innovate? And secondly, do you notice any vulnerability that we have in this context to localize and serve our own market with our own stakeholders?
Again, with my limited experience, I think these are the questions I think people who are actually practicing, entrepreneurs and network, people who are looking at their market might be able to answer better. But from my side, our heart is, at least everything that a lot of us do in terms of creating, democratizing that infrastructure, digital infrastructure, is all about providing access and affordance and choice to people. Access, that means very easy to access education, healthcare, insurance, job opportunities, whatever the access and affordance. You can access it, but it's not affordable. I have a great hospital nearby, I can't go. Yeah. It's useless, right? Or I can access it, but I need to go 8 hours to travel to that bank branch. It's not affordable to me, right? The third is choice. And very interestingly, if you look at PDS systems and so on, the food distribution, we talk about lack of choice. Where I can afford it, I can access it, if I am nearby the food truck. But I have no choice but to go to that particular shop and go to the same thing what government has decided that I should get. So I think the choice angle. So, but if you look at these three dimensions of it, if you three axes, access, affordance, and choice, and then you ask the question really, saying that what infrastructure should we build so that innovators in the market, including government as innovator, NGOs as innovators, or marketplace, bazaar, marketplace as innovators, can do to really address the next 80% of the country or 60%, 70% of the country, beyond the top 10, 15% of the country. Yeah. How can we create solutions for it? Because unless we create inclusion into the formal digital economy, we will continue to have the great divide and it will never work out in the long run. What is the vulnerability? Definitely, I look at one of the vulnerabilities are still we are, I would say, not disconnected ourselves from the thinking of license Raj-like thinking, right? That means our cost of compliance and cost of doing business and cost of our number of rules and regulations that we need to cater to. I think we are vulnerable to that.
One thing that's happened in this new normal, so to say, is some virtual mechanics have kicked in. For example, contact tracing, digital surveillance, and they're becoming part of the new normal out of a necessity, a need.
Yep.
As a technologist, when you're building this, right, this is where I think a bit of ethical integrity also comes in, because you have to balance between two things. One is serving the public interest, serving the public good, and of course, safeguarding private interest and privacy in general.
Yeah.
how no one teaches you this, right? In university, how do
And
you?
we don't even know what the right path is. It's an evolving thing.
Yeah. But so what heuristics do you use to make better choices? Because that's all we can do. We can try to make better choices, more informed choices. So how do you try to navigate that challenge?
I think a lot of, especially the Aadhaar sort of was a specific project, very specific purpose that half the country doesn't have, identity documents or portable identity, nationally portable identity, don't have birth certificate. How do we include them? How do we give them bank account? If the KYC norms and PMLA compliance is so high, how do we get them to do banking? So Aadhaar was very specific purpose, and it was a project in that sense to get it done. But subsequently, as we built many other layers, UPI, now recently we have started some effort called Beacon, and these are all protocol, open protocol definitions. But we are starting to do two heuristics. One, always put the person in the middle, that individual who you are hoping to benefit, hoping this will benefit from, right? Not the system in the middle. So you have what you call a demand side centric view, not a supply centric view that we should do this project and it is for the government and hence we will do this, right? Even Arogya Setu, is it for the government or is it for the person? Is it a person to understand their friends and families to protect? So who is at the center of our design is very key. That is one heuristic you always say, you always ask if you are talking about personal healthcare. Is it for the government to know what are the diseases, or is it for you to empower yourself with knowing what you want to do the right things? Eventually with education, you are hoping that, but you can always ask make the argument today that, they can't even read and write, they may not know, so we will make the call. Still, it's a bad idea not to put them in the middle. You have to always design for the individual, right? First heuristic. Second heuristic, minimalism as a heuristic. Absolute minimalism. I was not necessarily part of that track. When I installed it myself, I was asking the question, why did I need to really give my actual full name? Now, of course, I don't want to lie because it says I agree to saying that I am giving my name. Did you really need my name? So a lot of further minimalism questions could have asked in many. So minimalism as an angle is a very important thing to ask, saying that, do I really need to capture that data at all?